what is wokeness? The word woke started as Black slang for staying aware of systemic racism, state-sponsored racism. And I, as a lefty, think that is very, very important. There are still areas in America where we are struggling with state-sponsored racism. Police brutality is one, mass incarceration, our public education disparities. To me, it's not, woke to care about those things. I use the word woke now in the way that sociologists do to refer to a phenomenon that happened much more recently, where white liberals have become much more extreme in their views on race than Black and Latino Americans. And they call this the Great Awakening. Now, I am not insensate to the criticism of having appropriated a word from Black slang that describes something important and using it as a pejorative. I think that's a legitimate criticism, but it does refer to a phenomenon that I think is extremely important to critique. So it is not woke to push or care about police reform. Every American of conscience should do so, and Republican Senator Tim Scott was not being woke when he wrote a police reform bill. It's not woke to demand an end to mass incarceration. That's extremely important. Every American of conscience should do so, and President Trump was not being woke when he passed the First Step Act that released 5,000 Black men from prison. That's not what wokeness is. Wokeness is when you demand defunding the police instead of police reform, a view that's opposed by 81% of Black Americans, but is very beloved by affluent, highly educated white liberals, the kind that run the op-ed section at the New York Times, okay? That's what I'm talking about. It is not woke to demand education reform. It's woke to call standardized testing white supremacy when Black parents are begging for a good education for their children, okay? And the argument that I make in the book, I wanted to understand, how did this Great Awakening happen? How did white liberals give themselves the excuse of surpassing the people that they are supposed to be advocating on behalf of, the people that we have abandoned over and over, the American descendants of slaves? Like, how did that happen in the name of social justice? That's what I tried to understand. And the same sociologists who identified the Great Awakening tied it back to the media, to the liberal media. What they found was, and again, we've noticed this, I think a lot of lefties and liberals noticed this, a shift in the way that our media, our liberal media, national liberal news media, talks about race over the last 10 years. But you don't have to rely on your anecdotal impressions. The same sociologists who clocked that shift in white liberal opinion to see it outpace Black and Latino Americans in its extremity on race have found that there was just a total skyrocketing of the use of woke words in the New York Times and the Washington Post and NPR and the Atlantic and Vox and all of these outlets. They just started talking about things like white privilege and oppression and marginalization, and coupling the words marginalization with the words people of color just exponentially, starting in 2011, 2012. It was a direct response to a business incentive, a business profit motive, which is digital media. And that led me to ask, why did this happen? When did this happen? And what I found was that, American journalism, it used to be this working class trade. It used to be a job that it was a blue collar job. Journalists used to live next door to cops, and they didn't make that much more money than them. And over the course of the 20th century, there was a status revolution in American journalism. Now journalists live next door to corporate lawyers, and they make a little bit less than them. And along with this status revolution, American journalists have abandoned the working class of all races, And they today, unconsciously, I believe, they are using a moral panic around race to distract from the real divide in America, which is one of class. That's in a nutshell, in a long nutshell, a big nutshell, the argument of the book.